Listen to this. The Trump campaign just announced that they're now accepting donations in cryptocurrency. Not to be outdone, President Biden announced that he's now accepting Werther's Originals and ear quarters. That's for you. That's behind your ear.
Sure. Yeah, that's, yeah. And ramen noodles. He's taking ramen noodles, too. Joe Biden is crazy, man, crazy. It is wacky out there, isn't it? Ba-dum. I tell you what, we just had a fun moment here at the radio station. Everybody in Virginia knows Hung Cao. H-U-N-G, last name C-A-O, Hung Cao. Great American story. Running for Senate in the Commonwealth of Virginia right now. Son of parents that escaped communism in Vietnam. Hung Cao grew up to go to the U.S. Naval Academy. An extraordinary life story. Special operator and, EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, special operations officer, and great American story, now running for the Senate in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And did a quick drive-by at the station here, popped in during the news break to the studio, and not only gave me his new book, Call Me an American is the title of the book, Refugee to Patriot, Lessons Learned for a Strong America, and Hung Cao dropped off his new book, and very appreciative. And while here, went over to said hello to Michael Piercy, and he coined him. He coined Michael Piercy with his Hung Cao coin, which is great. He didn't coin me because he coined me last time we met at the Capitol Hill Club at a political event. But Hung Cao, he's a friend and a great American, and boy, a great American story, an amazing American story. I think the Naval Academy graduation is this weekend, isn't it? I think that it's this weekend, Naval Academy. But he's an amazing story. Nodding, yeah, that's right, it's this weekend. And yeah, that's why the Blue Angels I was talking about the Blue Angels earlier. Great stuff. Yeah, so quick drive-by. Washington's a funny town. It's a funny place. Not funny like a comedy club, but the other kind of funny, What a world it is. Yeah, and the New York Times attacking Justice Samuel Alito again because they're horrible. They're horrible racists, and they're just terrible. I know Sam Alito's Italian, but they hate him. It's amazing, these attacks that they launch relentlessly against the political enemies of the Democrat Party. I am telling you, they're attacking him, and naturally they're also attacking Justice Clarence Thomas because, and here it is, they're attacking Justice Samuel Alito, the corrupt, filthy news media, just a couple of weeks ago, because they found that 3 years ago, Mrs. Alito put up the American flag, the symbol of distress, on their flagpole, which they have in front of their home, where the American flag flies, unlike everybody at the New York Times and the Washington Post. But Mrs. Alito put up the American flag, the sign of distress, upside down, after neighbors, they have Democrat neighbors there, put up a giant expletive deleted, the F word, Trump, right? Banner, a huge banner, F Trump, with the whole word right in front of a little bus stop where the little kids wait to get on the school bus, because the Democrats are always keeping it classy, keeping it classy. And Mrs. Alito mentioned it to a neighbor, and the neighbor called her the C word because they're keeping it classy, right? And it was at that point that Mrs. Alito said, what is going on in America? What is going on with her husband's a legal scholar, a Supreme Court justice, and the left has gone so completely bat guano insane that they consider this kind of behavior and this language to be normal. And they're demented, child abusing, like this, expert in Chicago. Hey, not all, child rape in school traumatizes. Yeah, sure, some of them grow up to be Democrats, I guess, but amazing stuff. But now, U.S. Supreme Court judge, they've got a new attack. And it was a sign of distress. Flying the American flag upside down is a sign of distress. And they attacked him like, oh, it's January 6th. Like, what are you people talking about? An upside-down flag has nothing to do with January 6th. You're all mentally ill or mentally deficient in some way. And now the New York Fake Times has another hit piece. And, of course, the rest of the media is following because that's what they do. They're lemming. It's a centipede, the American news media, and the head of the centipede is the New York Times. Another provocative flag was flown at another Alito home. And it's a flag with a white flag with basically a pine tree on it. And they've got a photograph of it. And this was also a couple of years ago now, but they don't care. They're just smearing, slandering everybody. The Justice's Beach House displayed an Appeal to Heaven flag, a symbol carried on January 6th and associated with a push for a more Christian-minded government. Oh, no, not Christians. And then they go on and on. It's crazy. Last summer, 2 years after an upside-down American flag was flown outside the Virginia home of Justice Samuel A. Alito Jr., another provocative symbol was displayed at his vacation house in New Jersey, according to interviews and photographs. They got multiple interviews. They can't get to the bottom of Hunter Biden's laptop for years on end. But this one, they're really cracking the nut on this one, aren't they? This time, it was the Appeal to Heaven flag, which, like the inverted U.S. flag, was carried by rioters at the Capitol on January 6th. The American flag was carried by most of the people at the Capitol on January 6th. There were no flags being carried by the people that set the Church of the Presidents on fire and forced the evacuation of the president and the first family from the residence in the White House in 2020, while the Democrats spent 3 days laying siege to the White House, injuring 160 to 180 police officers, and again, setting fire, torching the Church of the Presidents, the 1815 church in Washington, D.C. And the New York Times didn't write a story about that because they're filth. Appeal to Heaven, which, like the inverted U.S. flag, was carried by rioters. No, you guys are ignorant as little tiny children, demented children. Maybe you were all sexually abused as children by your Democrat adults, amazingly. Also known as the pine tree flag. It dates back to the Revolutionary War. Wow, you're onto something here, you dimwits. But largely fell into obscurity until recent years and is now a symbol of support for former President Donald Trump. I had never heard that to be the case. Never once did I hear that the Revolutionary War era Appeal to Heaven flag was associated with Donald Trump. Never heard that. That's not true. That's fake. The New York Times is lying because they hire a bunch of lying sacks of Jewia. You know how they are. Dates back to the Revolution and obscurity, and now Donald Trump. For a religious strand of Stop the Steal campaign and a push to remake American government in Christian terms. I've never heard any of that, and I follow everything closely. The New York Times does not. 3 photographs obtained by the New York Times, along with accounts from half a dozen neighbors and passers-by, show that the Appeal to Heaven flag was aloft at the Alito home on Long Beach Island in July and September of 2023. Wow, it's a real deep dive investigation you guys have done, huh? How about Joe Biden showering with his daughter at inappropriate age, and she became a sex addict, and then an act of passive-aggressive contempt for her father left her diary at a drug rehab facility. Never mind. You get to the bottom of that one, New York Times? Anybody? How about all the riots? Who they're being, the Democrat riots? There are hundreds of them. Who are they being funded by? A Google Street View image from late August also shows the flag. Oh, you guys are really onto it here. The Google Street View. But you already had other photos. Why do you need the Google Street View? You don't. You people are morons, but at least you're incredibly corrupt morons. The photographs, each taken independently, are from 4 different dates. Isn't that amazing? It's not clear whether the flag was displayed continuously during these. It's an American Revolutionary War era flag that has nothing to do with Donald Trump or Christian, and they use the term Christian nationalism. I don't even know what Christian nationalism is. It's just another slur that the godless, baby slaughtering atheist swine that we like to call the Democrat Party, they just gin this stuff up and they slander everybody. And now we've got the Democrat leader of the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries. His name is Hakeem. And his uncle is Professor Leonard Jeffries, a notorious anti-Semite who was the Democrat leader in the House's mentor as a teenager. Just as Barack Obama had a mentor when he was a teenager, Frank Marshall Davis, a literal card-carrying member of the Communist Party in the United States of America. These people are not on our side. And here is Hakeem Jeffries going after not just Samuel Alito, but also Clarence Thomas, because he's a racist in addition to being an anti-Semite and a communist. And here is Hakeem Jeffries.
Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas are totally out of control. These individuals continue to detonate the credibility of the United States Supreme Court.
Lie. That is a flagrant lie. You are filth, sir. You are un-American. You are anti-American, and that's perfectly normal because he's a Democrat. That's the thing about Hakeem Jeffries. But he's not done yet because they don't have a majority Democrat nominees on the Supreme Court now, and that means it's time for jihad. It's time for revolution because they don't believe in using the Congress to pass laws. Look at Joe Biden. They don't believe in the Supreme, and he goes around the Congress all the time. $164 billion in student debt relief to buy votes, right? $16 billion, and not going through Congress. And the Supreme Court said you can't do that. And he said, well, screw that. I'm going to do it anyway. And then the New York Times is fine with that because they're filth. These are very corrupt people. We're living in very corrupt times in the United States of America. And Hakeem Jeffries is an extremely corrupt person. He's the Democrat leader in the House of Representatives.
In the case of Samuel Alito,
speak up.
He definitively needs to recuse himself.
Definitively. That's a big word.
Any matter pending before the United States Supreme Court that has to do with the January 6th violent insurrection.
Why is that?
He should have no part of it.
Why? There's a flag, because there's a flag that is a flag from the American Revolution. And because that flag flew, however briefly, at his beach house, he must recuse himself. This is demented, mentally ill stuff. These people are sick in the head. And he's a racist. I know, I don't care what his race is. That doesn't matter. He's a self-loathing racist. He's amazing. And wait a minute. He's got to recuse himself from anything having to do, because there's a case that's coming up before the Supreme Court having to do with Donald Trump and January. So you've got to recuse yourself. Have that communist Jake LaMotta-looking person recuse herself. You know how corrupt she is? For the love of Mike. Hakeem Jeffries.
Part of the problem that we confront is that the Supreme Court has chosen to conduct itself as if the judiciary is above the law.
That's a lie.
In America,
you're a liar.
No one is above the law. That includes the Supreme Court.
Joe Biden is.
That
Hunter Biden
Samuel
is.
Alito, and that includes Clarence Thomas.
Oh, and Clarence, just throw him in for good measure. You Uncle Tom. You are just the worst. They like, that's a name they like to call people too. They like to call Clarence Thomas that, who's the only true, but never mind that. All right, I got one more Hakeem Jeffries I got to squeeze in here.
If the Supreme Court does not get its act under control
There is no out of
You can
control.
be confident that Democrats in the House of Representatives, partnering with Democrats in the United States Senate, will act
The what?
the first opportunity we have to engage in thorough oversight and the consideration of imposing
Huh?
an ethical
What?
code of conduct on Supreme Court justices.
Maybe you should read the Constitution, you filth. You know, Article 3 of the Constitution is the judiciary, and Article 1 is the Congress, and then the Article 2 is the executive branch. But I don't think these people are familiar with the country we live in. He's an un-American, anti-American. I got it. These people are awful, terrible people, really. You know, and there's more on that coming up as well. A recent study reports that the rapidly declining global birth rate will lead to a major population crisis if birth rates continue to decline. While we may feel hopeless and the constant attack on human life in the United States, there's an amazing way to fight back. When they shout abortion, which they do, we shout life, which we do. Preborn is leading the way. Every day, the Preborn Network rescues 200 unborn babies when a mother sees her baby's ultrasound. And ultrasound, here's the heartbeat. A baby's chance at life could double. Long, happy life. Get the Democrats out of the way. The ultrasound is a secret weapon that joins the heart of the mother with the heart of her child. Preborn provides ultrasound for clinics in the highest abortion areas in the United States of America. We can join hands nationwide for life, can't we, right? One ultrasound is just $28, but any gift of any dollar amount will help. $5,000 will actually underwrite ultrasounds for the entire network nationwide for a whole day. And all of your gifts are tax deductible. To donate, all you have to do is hit pound 250 on your phone, and when prompted, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 on your phone, and the keyword is baby. Or you can visit preborn.com/plant. That's preborn.com/PLANTE. Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries. He's really got his finger on the pulse. Wait a minute, a Revolutionary War era American flag. And an American flag, a sign of distress after being, assaulted by the vile Democrat neighbors. And now you must recuse yourself. Reminds me of Chuck Schumer going to the Supreme Court and threatening members of Congress. And it reminds me of the would-be assassin outside of Brett Kavanaugh's house and the protesters outside the homes of all of the sane Supreme Court justices, but not the radical leftists. By the way, the flag most frequently seen on January 6th was the American flag. The Democrats will doubtless target that next.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
That was the Lizard King, Chuck Schumer, threatening members of the Supreme Court in front of the Supreme Court. He's the Democrat leader in the Senate, the majority leader in the Senate. The New York Times, Chuck Schumer, what's the difference? The Democrat Party, they're a danger to our democracy, except they really are a danger to our democracy because they're not liberals, they're the left. They have no American values that can be identified or located. Pretty amazing stuff. And I made, first of all, one thing I need to clarify, and that is that the Naval Academy commissioning, the graduation for the Naval Academy is tomorrow. I said it was this weekend, isn't it? And so I wasn't 100% sure. It's tomorrow, Friday, and the speaker at the commissioning ceremony will be the Secretary of the entire Department of Defense, Lloyd Austin, who is, of course, a retired four-star Army general. And he hasn't been great as the Secretary of Defense, but never mind that. We've also got so much corruption going on in this city. The headline, Middle East Eye, Secret Iran-U.S. talks on Gaza war undermined by Raisi's death. Oh, no. That's kind of peculiar. Sources close to the discussions in Oman tell the Middle East Eye that the delegation spoke about ending Israel's war and shared a desire to change the government in Israel. Well, how can that be? Wait a minute. The Biden administration is trying to overthrow the government in Israel. That's what a change in government means. And they're working with Hamas and Iran to change the Netanyahu government. That sounds awfully treasonous, pretty extraordinary stuff. How about release the hostages, hand over the terrorists and the chief terrorists in Hamas? But no, the Biden administration is funding Iran, funding Hamas, building a port facility for them where everybody's being robbed and at least one shot and killed while Hamas steals all of the alleged humanitarian relief supplies that are arriving there. We've lost our ever-loving minds. And the National Review has a story, speaking of being treacherous and treasonous and betraying us. National Review has a story today. CIA blocked IRS from investigating Hunter Biden patron Kevin Morris. Whistleblower claims. Isn't that a fascinating thought? And this is the National Review, as I said, James Lynch. An IRS agent who came forward last year with allegations of misconduct in the Hunter Biden case is now accusing the CIA of protecting Hunter Biden's financial patron. IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley provided an affidavit to the House Ways and Means Committee on Wednesday, that's yesterday, alleging that the CIA gave federal prosecutors a classified briefing on Kevin Morris, Hunter Biden's friend and patron. Wow. Prompting his IRS superiors to cancel a planned interview with Morris that was to be conducted as part of the Hunter Biden tax case. I'm sorry, the CIA is involved in a Hunter Biden tax case? And that creepy guy who looks like he lives under a bridge, but he's the one who gave $6 million to Hunter Biden to pay off all his stuff. Delaware Assistant U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf told Shapley around August 2021 that Morris would not be a witness in the investigation after she and another Justice Department official received a classified CIA briefing on Morris, Hunter Biden's friend. The whistleblower Shapley said, wow, these people are very, very corrupt people. Shockingly, or at least appallingly corrupt people. Just extraordinary stuff. I am telling you. Also, you see the story that John Kerry protected Iranian terrorists, and the Biden administration is reportedly colluding with Iran, right? And what are they colluding with Iran? Well, I just mentioned this one in a different story. To overthrow Benjamin Netanyahu as the prime minister of Israel. Isn't that amazing? Just remarkable stuff. I'm telling you. The secret talks. The Biden administration is not a good administration. Not even close. And if we had a news media, what would they be doing? They might be investigating this stuff and reporting on it, but they're not. A picture of a flag outside of Samuel Alito's house in New Jersey at the beach from a couple of years ago. That's a Revolutionary War era flag, is then misrepresented and misconstrued. So you get the radical extremist Hakeem Jeffries out there. Boy, I am telling you, who is more corrupt? Ought to be a game show around here. Another National Review story, whistleblowers allege John Kerry blocked FBI from arresting Iranian agents on U.S. soil while Obama administration Secretary of State. John Kerry, also known as Boltneck. He frightens the children every Halloween. just by going to the front door. John Kerry prevented the United States Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, both filthy, corrupt, and have destroyed their own reputations, from arresting Iranian terrorists on American soil while negotiating the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. I like to call it the JCPOA. They call it the JCPOA. That is the lamest abbreviation ever. They were negotiating the Iran nuclear deal, which allowed Iran to continue to advance their ballistic missile program, allowed Iran to continue to spin centrifuges and to enrich uranium, which they intend to use to make nuclear weapons, which they intend to use against us and Israel. And Boltneck and Barack Hussein Obama, appropriate in this context, both allowed Iran to continue to spin centrifuges, enrich uranium, advance their ballistic missile program, and at the same time, whistleblowers going to the office of Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa, Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin, explained that the U.S. State Department under John Boltneck Kerry prevented the Justice Department and the FBI from arresting Iranians who were inside the United States of America who are up to no good. Unclassified and legally protected whistleblower disclosures provided to our offices, Grassley and Johnson said, show that while the Obama-Biden administration publicly committed to preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons by raising the cost of Iran's defiance of the international community, then Secretary of State John Kerry actively interfered with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, executing arrest warrants on individuals in the U.S. illegally, that means they're illegal alien Iranians, supporting Iranian efforts, including financial efforts to develop weapons of mass destruction and its ballistic missile program, Grassley and Johnson wrote in a letter to Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The records show the Justice Department and FBI leadership, to include then Attorney General Lynch and then FBI Director Comey, failed to take the necessary steps to stop Kerry's obstruction of efforts against law enforcement. You know, if we had this is the National Review. This should be a banner headline in the New York Times and the Washington Post today. But the most corrupt institutions in America. Speaking of which, we have a little Comey, don't we? Speaking of Comey being a crook, because these people, I'm telling you, it's soundbite number 16. And the left-wing hack Alex Wagner on MSDNC giving a tongue bath to James Comey. Just amazing. Comey is out there attacking President Trump, who he undermined and sabotaged when President Trump was president-elect and then when he became president. And Comey is telling people to vote for Biden. He's supposed to be a non-political and apolitical person, FBI director. But here's the radical left-wing Alex Wagner at she's the Wagner of journalism, and James Comey. Got to vote for Biden because Trump, who's being targeted by the Justice Department and the FBI raid with the lethal force, use of lethal force, right? Shoot anybody. There was no use of lethal force authorized for the raids. They weren't raids. They were prearranged visits to Joe Biden's houses and offices to find all the classified documents that he had been stealing, and that's the right word, since he was a senator. MSNBC's Alex Wagner and former FBI Director James Comey.
When you think about a second Trump administration, what do you think the implications would be for the FBI?
Oh, serious for the Justice Department and the FBI, because Trump is coming for those institutions. He knows their power, and I think he has regrets that he didn't work hard enough to corrupt them. I don't care how you feel about Joe Biden, you must vote for him because the consequences on the other side are too severe.
President Trump was president for 4 years. He didn't corrupt the FBI, but the Obama administration corrupted the FBI and the Justice Department, and the Biden administration has corrupted the FBI. They're using a corrupt FBI pre-existing and Justice Department. And by the way, they use the IRS against every organization in the country with the words Tea Party or the word Patriot in it to keep them on the sidelines. And where did that question come from Alex Wagner? That was a setup. That was agreed to ahead of time. That was staged by NBC Fake News and the fake journalist Alex Wagner. And, what would be the implications to the FBI of Trump winning? Well, Trump is currently being in a Soviet-style, Joseph Stalin, Lavrenti Beria, KGB-style attack on Donald Trump. These institutions have been corrupted and abused by the Democrats. And they kept telling us James Comey is a Republican. He is a frothy Democrat hack, a Democrat who is campaigning for Joe Biden and against Donald Trump. And that is, in our news media, what would the implications be? That was a setup question and a setup answer. They're actors on stage in a theatrical presentation. Senator J.D. Vance was asked about Comey's response to that setup question.
The problem is James Comey himself presided over a Department of Justice, a Federal Bureau of Investigation that became weaponized. People don't want to be prosecuted for speaking their mind. They don't want to be prosecuted for, participating in the pro-life cause. They certainly don't want the leader of the opposition, Donald Trump, prosecuted on phony, trumped-up charges that have nothing to do with justice and everything to do with politics.
Yeah, that seems fair enough, Senator J.D. Vance, on the corruption that is so widespread and pervasive in our government.
So when you have the leader of the FBI, who's maybe the single biggest reason why we have a weaponized justice system in this country, talking about Donald Trump as if he's the problem is James Comey and everybody who thinks like he does. And if Donald Trump goes after that weaponized system of justice, it will benefit not primarily Donald Trump, it will benefit everyday Americans who want to be able to participate in their own country without being thrown in jail.
Yeah, which I think is something that we should, I remember the old days before we had such a corrupt, extraordinarily corrupt government, and boy, we really do. Speaking of which, Chuck Schumer is bringing up that failed Senate fake border bill that was voted down in the Senate. President Trump opposed the bill. It doesn't fix the problem at the border. And now Schumer, the lizard king, who's threatening Supreme Court justices every chance he gets, and no accountability for that. Then an armed lunatic with a gun and multiple magazines, burglary tools, kidnapping tools, shows up at the home of a Supreme Court justice, and no consequences for Schumer whatsoever. Let's go to Senator James Lankford, who is the only Republican that actually supported that Schumer bill that did not fix anything at the border, and gave the media and the Democrats, but I repeat myself, an opening to call it a bilateral, it's a bipartisan bill, excuse me. And James Lankford yesterday on CNN about the bill that now the Lizard King is reintroducing to the Senate that won't fix anything at the border.
It's no longer a bill. Now it's a prop. We spent 4 months sitting down in a bipartisan way to be able to work out what do we think we can actually get passed. Obviously, I was not successful in getting something that could actually get passed. The problem still remains. Everyone knows that this bill is not going to pass, and Senator Schumer is bringing it back up to try to bludgeon people.
Because now it's just pure politics. It's just, they're going to vote against securing the border. And it's a big lie. It's a big lie. They don't want to fix the border. They can fix the border. Cringe was asked about it yesterday at the White House. Why doesn't Biden just take executive action on the border, as he did when he first took office, to undo everything President Trump had done to secure our border? And she said, why should we have to do that? Why should we have to? Well, because you broke it. And because Schumer doesn't have a bill that can pass the Senate because it doesn't fix anything. even though they have a majority in the Senate, but never mind that. I'm sorry to have to report that we're living in very corrupt times in the United States of America. Ex-Fauci, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Ex-Fauci top advisor offers apologies and excuses after COVID email revelations. Turns out they were emailing each other back and forth about destroying their emails about COVID and all that. Congressman Brad Wenstrup started off with Dr. David Morens.
On January 18, you testified no when asked if you ever deleted anything from your official count that could be considered a federal record. Dr. Morens, are you aware that the destruction or attempted destruction of federal records carries a potential punishment of both imprisonment and a fine?
Me?
I was not aware of that, and I was not aware that anything I deleted, like emails, was a federal record, because we have federal records training periodically, and the training, that I recall we received defined a federal record in a very different way.
Yeah, you're a government official, a health official. There's a pandemic, 1 million Americans died. And gosh, I didn't know my government emails were government records. They're Dr. David Morens, also known as Moron.
And I must say, based on my understanding of what a federal record was, I truly don't think I have ever seen a federal record in 26 years of being at NIH. And if I'm wrong about that, I apologize, because it just never dawned on me.
They destroyed emails in a systematic way having to do with the government response to the pandemic. Just amazing stuff. Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis.
Why did you choose to use personal email?
Because that was not government business. What happens to a private citizen in a death threat situation, in my mind, is not government business.
Well, it is government business if you are advising him, you're advocating on his behalf, you're editing things, letters that he wanted to send to NIH. You did all that on personal email, correct?
I don't remember, but if I did, I shouldn't have done that. That's wrong.
It is wrong, and that's why we're asking the question.
Yeah, and it's about the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the origins of the funding of gain-of-function research, which they lied and lied and lied about, and they got caught yesterday, but it'll be swept under the rug.